Rhonda and Cynthia. Today it is just Cynthia because our girl Rhonda has come down with I don't know, a flu or some kind of sickness that's just keeping her under the weather. And Paul and I, my husband, have been following the weather that's been going on in the US. Um, our thoughts go out to you because you have been dealing with some craziness. Just earlier this week, we also had some craziness on this side of the Atlantic, specifically in Turkey and Syria. They had a couple of earthquakes out there, and so they're kind of dealing with some realities as well. So our hearts and thoughts go out to them as well. And we're looking into also some humanitarian. There are some humanitarian organizations that are obviously mobilizing now as we speak, and providing food support, clothing, shelter to many of the victims. We're looking at hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of victims of the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. So I guess that makes today's topic, which Rhonda and I talked about a bit yesterday, not yesterday, last week, getting ready for this week's show, is trusting our hearts. And I don't know about you, but I have had those kind of moments where, something will happen where I'll make a decision not to do something that I was planning to do and then find out later that there was some big catastrophic event that occurred, and I just happened to slip by it. And I think probably one of the biggest events that most of us, at least in my age group and up, can remember is 9/11, where we remember exactly where we were. Some of us had plans of being in the World Trade Center on that day and either canceled them at the last minute or somehow got sidetracked or something like that. And I do think that trusting your heart does have a lot to do with navigating the unexpected in life. And that when we do sort of lead a heartful way of living and consciousness, that we can actually avoid a lot of turmoil. That's not to say that, like, living life and living our lives is about avoiding turmoil, but it is about, being able to live your best life. And if that turmoil is unnecessary for you, if that lesson does not need to be learned by you in a hard or difficult way, then maybe leading a heart, I don't know what the word is, like a heart driven way into your, every moment, that makes more sense. Good morning, Miss Cynthia Callahan. Thank you so much for joining. Rhonda is ill today, so it's going to be a short show, but we are talking about trusting our hearts. If you have any thoughts about that, I am quite sure, actually, now that we talk about trusting our hearts and um, let's say avoiding catastrophic events. I actually have a really good recent example, which was my mother and I. We went on a cruise, our last cruise together, in March 2020, and our return flight back home. So we were in the Caribbean, and our return flight back home was on the 16th of March. And I remember only noticing, so we were, out at sea doing our cruise thing. At this point, there was no sort of talk of a global pandemic. And I remember on one of the days that we were out on at port, and we got off the ship in Curacao. Um, I noticed the headline. I noticed the headline, probably the first time I kind of noticed the headline at all, or saw newspapers really, in Curacao, and no, it was Aruba, and so I saw the headline, and it was like, the coronavirus spreads globally, something like that. That it was sort of really picking up the pace, like it had like the tsunami effect, because that we'd only heard hints of it by the time we left. We left our place in Switzerland about 2 weeks earlier. Anyway, so I saw the headline and I noticed it. And then we went about on our tour in Aruba, and then we returned to the ship after a few hours. And when I got on the ship, I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the concierge and I'm going to I'm going to see if I can start the check-in process with our flights, because my mother is obviously older than I am. And, I like for things to move smoothly on our trips. And boy, was I so glad that I did that, because when I went to the concierge, there still weren't really many people who had lined up for all of that. They allowed me to use their phone and contact the airliner, and I confirmed with them, and the airline told me right there on the phone, oh, actually, we're canceling all flights starting on that date, which was the 15th. We were flying out, and then we would arrive in Europe on the 16th. And I was like, oh, well, good thing I'm calling. She's like, yeah, you're actually like, we haven't made the announcement yet, but we're about to. So let's go ahead and,